Alright, so this is going to be my very first recording of a Let's Play of Arma 3, full campaign I plan to do. Um, Literally never recorded something for viewing, basically, before, so be my first time. It's probably going to be pretty bad, but I mean, the reason why I want to do this is, I always like to, I don't know, I'm kind of an Arma nut, you could say. Um, yeah, and I like to see anything Arma basically. And what I've always kind of wished there was when I look online for YouTube videos of Arma 3, I would like to see like a campaign comprehensive playthrough. And there are playthroughs, and some of them are fine, but I don't know. I've never seen one done by someone who plays the fuck out of Arma single player and multiplayer and just plays a ton of it and knows a lot about it. And it's just always very, I'd say has an autistic amount of knowledge or interest in Arma. I'd say Arma 3 in particular. Um, and so I thought I'd make this as just kind of something that personally I would be looking for. Like if someone had done something like this where they're going to be talking about details they notice and just thoughts on the general campaign, I probably would enjoy that. So I'll kind of make something that I hope I would enjoy myself. Sorry. Um, so that being said, yeah, without going too much into the nitty gritty, I'm basically just set up a basic microphone and capture. I'm hoping it's gonna be fine. I'll probably tweak it as I go. I'm not really expecting to get any views out of this. It's kind of just a project. Um, my first session, I'll probably just play through the prologue in a bit before I have to go to bed. But yeah, let's get started. Campaigns. I really like the prologue in particular. I guess I'll get into more, but I just like how, even though it's a tutorial, it's nice that it has a bit of a, it's got a bit of a story to it, and it's important backing for the campaign. And when I first played the campaign, I didn't even really think about the prologue because I just assumed, oh well, it's just a tutorial. But it actually has some interesting setup. So yeah, I'll get started on that. I guess I'll go over game options. Well, I guess it doesn't matter for tutorial because you're always playing on normal, but for the campaign, difficulty-wise, this is kind of how I run it. High skill, low precision, no reduced damage, hide everything, show weapon info, and stance indicator because I like to see how many mags I have and rate of fire and stuff like that. Things that I would think you would know as a soldier. I run it kind of similar to how I would run Ace, but obviously I wouldn't run Ace in the campaign. So stamina bar, I don't know why you wouldn't want to see your stamina bar. It's not really realistic to not know when you're tired. Obviously no crosshair, no vision aid. Third person I enable. I run third person in my Arma multiplayer group as well. Um, Reason being, mainly to get an edge up on the AI, who kind of have a tendency to see through foliage, or I wouldn't say they cheat, but they kind of have a unnatural eye for things that I kind of like to even the playing field with third person. It is a bit gamey because you'll see me looking around corners and things like that. But I don't know, I just like third person, and I also really enjoy seeing my character model, kind of getting a view. You'll see me walking around in third person a lot. Camera shake, I'm fine with that. Everything else doesn't really matter. No map content because I just like that. I like to. One thing I really enjoy that I liked in the prologue is map orienteering and navigation without any aids. So even though I will use GPSs because it just makes it easier, I do enjoy having to keep an eye on where I am based on landmarks and just intuition. Basically, I think that's a really fun part of Arma, honestly, when you do get a mission where you don't have a GPS and you kind of have to coordinate things that way. Multiple saves is a must for me because I really don't like replaying difficult sections, and I kind of just save scum like constantly. Automatic reporting, I think I just do that because I don't want to have to report things. I don't even know how to report things to my squad mates. So yeah, I'll get started. I'll be playing on most things on ultra, or as high as they can go. I mean, I don't have a massively good PC, but I mean it's good enough for Arma, I'd say, especially single player. All right, let's get started. I'll revert this. I'd love Arma 4 to be announced soon, but that's probably going to date this video quite a bit. We'll see when it actually does get announced. The VR stuff I thought was kind of cool because it just kind of, I won't talk over Sergeant Adams.
Okay, let's see what this baby can do. All right, come on over.
Yeah, well, I like the VR thing because it's kind of like, how would the soldiers of the future kind of, it would be using VR probably. I mean, it's kind of, it's too gamey to how it would actually be used, but I mean, I could see it being used as a training aid.
Now, let's give you something to shoot at. Bang, bang. They're all yours,
The
Sergeant.
classic MX. Not the best Arma player, but I mean, I've played, I have like 3,000 hours, so
Let's get you oriented.
I'm decent.
Bring up your compass.
I really like Sergeant Adams as a character. It's one of those spoilers, but shame he isn't with you in the game for more of it. A compass.
Next one's just east of you.
You'll see me doing a lot of hip aim with zoom in. I've binded to my mouse button. Like that. Kind of not exactly conducive to good aiming, but it's just a habit I pick up. When you have no crosshairs, at least.
All right, not bad. Moving along. Here we go. Sergeant, if you'd be so kind.
Probably play through all the DLC and stuff as well.
Looks like it wants you to run from
Eventually.
marker as fast as you can.
Oh, that's what
Not sure how
great.
often these parts will come out. Hopefully I'll stick with it, but you know, I may eventually just fall off altogether if I just lose interest. But I figure as long as I'm playing the campaign, I'll be recording it, and I've played through the campaign at least 5 times by now, so you know, I really enjoy it. It's just kind of a relaxing thing to go through. It's just playing something that you know. It's kind of like a comfort game. I don't know. I really enjoy the story beats and all the characters, and yeah, it's just comfortable, I'd say.
You know what? Go bother someone else. Out. AF morons.
Quickly gonna pause the recording here just to see if the settings are all good and everything. All right. Yeah, the settings seem mostly good. Let me know in the comments if you're watching this and you have any feedback. I'd probably listen to it. Oh yeah, one thing I noticed in the recording is I say and a lot, so I'll try to refrain from that. I guess it's just kind of how I talk in recording when I'm just talking to myself. Sorry about that. Adam's just kind of fucking around in the Zeus mode. I assume it's kind of like set up like Zeus in the canon, like how when you control the VR. It's kind of funny to think about it, but yeah. Just fucking around. Adams, he's a good guy.
Sorry about that. Well, I think it's safe to say it's working as advertised.
You got any more tanks lying around?
Maybe next time. All right.
I'll go into the MX later, but I do really like it as a gun. I know it's not the most popular part of the Arma arsenal, but I do enjoy the MX. I'd say it's kind of a it's not exactly an objective kind of love, because in utility and gameplay it's really not that great, but I enjoy the kind of I'm saying a lot, but the lore around it and the kind of the story behind it.
So, what'd you think? Not bad at all.
All right. Here comes the cavalry.
Shit, looks like get it working. I'll get things set up here. Copy.
Game seems to be running all right. I'm hoping my recording isn't too taxing on my system. I have to set up the targets. May have to play with the settings a bit. There's a Merkava in the field.
I thought I told you to go bother someone else.
Classic greenbacks.
I don't get annoyed easily.
I really love the AAF as a faction.
This guy.
They're,
This guy's a special kind of
I don't know, they're just kind of interesting because, at least at this stage, they're not really
copy.
bad,
All right, everyone,
or at least
gather
you don't know that yet. But
Really? Sorry.
they're kind of I guess it's interesting to play alongside a faction that doesn't really know what the fuck they're doing. I guess that's how I can really describe it. Their gear is probably my favorite in vanilla Arma. It's kind of classic looking. This guy, the team leader with his bronies around here.
Will be your cabin crew for today.
Cabin crew?
Since I'm fairly confident we all know why we're here, I'll skip the.
I'm doing a lot of Arma mission editing lately, and
Over to you, Sergeant.
I don't know, the kind of things you notice, like how they must have scripted all this dialogue and stuff. It's a lot of work to get dialogue working. Less so in single player than it is in multiplayer, but I kind of appreciate that. Rounds downrange. What do you want me to just shoot?
As you can see, while the sergeant remains standing upright, he has to work harder to compensate for the recoil. Were he to take a knee, the effort he'd have to put in compensating for the recoil.
Take a knee. All right.
would reduce.
Classic Call of Duty
Whenever
kind of
you
FPS,
try to
military
calm down
FPS
before firing,
tutorial mode.
going prone
I still
offers
enjoy
the
these,
stationary
even in Call of
shooting
Duty.
posture with the least recoil and smallest profile.
The CSAT targets.
Of grass and other obstacles obstructing your view.
My thoughts on CSAT are a little mixed. I'll talk about that more when they show up more. I guess he wants me to shoot while crouching? Or prone, I guess.
Engaging targets at greater distances is a bit more complicated. Collimator sights, like the sergeant here is using.
The ACO optic is not terrible.
Go ahead and grab the RC from the crate.
I don't like how there's so much dirt on it, really. That's kind of a strange choice for a optic. RCOs I'm not too big of a fan of. Nice to have the backup red dot, but I guess vanilla scopes in Arma, I just don't like this optic. It's just something about it is just hard to see the ranging. I like the well, in Ace it's called the Pitbull, but the whatever it's called, the AAF optic that they have, which is probably these guys actually.
Helicopters.
Apparently not.
Well,
That's
speaking
good.
of CSAT,
Yeah, there you go. This thing. I like this thing better than the RCO. Oh, sorry, Adams. 400 meters. 307. Is that special forces going by, or the kind of scouting party maybe?
Aim for clean, focused shots.
This is, if I check my map, this is, oh yeah. I just made a mission around this area, actually. A mechanized unit here, and a officer here.
300 meters away from you at bearing 330.
Sorry, Adams. 330. Kind of making a mess of this.
Conway, it's over there.
There, okay. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm sorry. I've never done this poorly on the prologue, I promise. 290. It's hard to talk and play at the same time, honestly. Just winged his right shoulder.
Let's move on.
6.5 on the MX isn't nearly as powerful as I think it should be, but that's kind of default vanilla Arma health. Doesn't fare much better with Ace balancing either, especially when you take into account that a lot of other mods with weapons kind of make their 5.56 much more powerful than 6.5 is in vanilla, and even with balancing mods, it's kind of iffy. I think that's why the MX kind of has the reputation it does, is a lot of weapon balancing kind of screws with its intended power versus how much power it has relative to other mods and stuff. I mean, that just comes with the territory of having a lot of mods. Not everyone's gonna make things play together with the vanilla content.
I have no idea.
I don't really blame any mod
Although I
makers
think
for
we can all agree it's quite a sight to behold.
Fuck you, Staff Sergeant.
it. Would be nice if
However,
maybe
it's
there were
completely spontaneous
some
and
kind of
totally
guideline on
unplanned
how to
marathon
balance mods to be more
conveniently brings us
uniform,
to
but
our next lesson.
it's not
Routine.
really that big of a
It can
problem, to
and
be
it
honest. It's
will be
just
your
something you
worst
notice after
nightmare in
playing
the field.
several thousand
You
hours.
fail to regulate it effectively. Push yourself too hard and you'll find yourself unable
Oh yeah,
to
this vest, which was added in one of the updates, I believe. I don't really like these vests, honestly. These grenadier type
The floor is all
vests with, they have a lot of molly, which is fine, but I don't know, they just kind of look plasticky. I get, like, look at that, just the sheen off of them. It just looks like it's made out of like maybe like a waxy kind of polymer coated fabric or something.
You'll notice the sergeant composed himself.
That recoil really isn't that bad. I mean, at ranges it gets bad, especially when you're sprinting around. But
If you do
yeah, this vest, I do enjoy how it has the actual MX mags though. That isn't nice because the vanilla NATO plate carriers have 5.56 megs, obviously from the time when the
that'll do, Sergeant. That'll do.
game, you know, NATO was supposed to have 5.56 weapons. I think they were supposed to have F2000s actually, back, you know, in the vanilla Arma days, or not vanilla, but back in the pre-alpha and everything, when everything was weird. I'll probably get more into that as the series goes on as well. This is probably my favorite part of the prologue in terms of the gameplay. It's something that you never really use. This triangulation method. I've never personally used it in the field because it seems a little encumbering, or overbearing, maybe is the word, but it's a little complicated for when you really just need to get a landmark and walk to it or drive to it. This is an interesting little exercise though. I like how it's played out.
Before we begin, Sergeant, if you'd be so kind,
A marker on our position.
on our
And of course they have all the markers, because in the prologue it has to be played in normal difficulty, which has markers and everything. Our position.
Coordinates are read from the bottom first.
Maybe I'm supposed to.
followed by the ones that run up the side.
066 is 159 66
066
66.
159er.
Can I not delete this marker? I guess not. Our position. Nice capital.
We're gonna attempt to triangulate their
I would
position.
triangulate their position. This is, yeah, I like the idea of this. I assume there are proper real life orienteering methods using, like, this can be used with. They probably based it off of something. But I don't know, I haven't done much real life orienteering in wilderness, although I do plan to go camping and hiking more often now. But
All right, Sergeant, stick 'em
I don't know,
up.
I just enjoy this little exercise. It's kind of fun.
About 3 clicks to the northeast. Clicks? 3 kilometers.
Here
in
to
other words.
this little FOB here, that's a common battleground. My missions. Sirta.
Now, let's draw a line going west from Sirta.
West from Sirta.
Can you guys give us any other landmarks?
It'd be nice if they had a straight draw line tool. Maybe there is, and I just don't know after all my hours still. They're right here, by the way. Spoiler alert.
Copy. Wait one.
That's probably somewhere southwest
This
of
here.
Sirta itself.
Chapel.
You can locate it, Sergeant?
Chapel?
All right, the bearing they gave us was 130. However, that's from them to the chapel. We want to work out the bearing from the chapel to their position. So let's do a 180. That makes it 310 from the chapel itself.
310.
You'll notice the
Can I not bring my? I
lines
can't bring my compass up,
that,
but yeah,
in a nutshell, is
that's how it's
all we're
done.
looking
So it would be around
for.
here,
Tells us
obviously
that
based on that kind of
the
strategy.
information they
Like I said, I've
provide
never
is
used that method, but I like how it works. It
However, the intersect
kind of
can always be exact.
makes it
Use
simple,
common
but
sense to enhance your accuracy.
a cool little triangulation biangulation since I'm only using 2 points, but I guess I'm finding the third point using 2 points. Marker on their position. Well, they are a loss. Yeah.
Yep, that looks about right.
I assume they're called troopers. I think they're called troopers in the lore. Like I've heard, I'm pretty sure they're called troopers, which, you know, cavalry troopers in the U.S. Army are called troopers because a troop is like a cavalry squad. It's cavalry squadrons are broken into troops or something like that. Like a troop is measured as a unit in the U.S. Army only used by the cavalry, I'm pretty sure. Feel free to correct me on that if I'm wrong, but so maybe the AAF kind of have a similar nomenclature with their yeah, with their organization. Drive. The Hunter, I like the Hunter.
Take the left up ahead.
Kind of a just probably the most boring MRAP. It kind of just looks like a default MRAP you would think of in a game like Squad or it's like you know, obviously it's based off of a real vehicle, which I think it's called the OTASH maybe or something. I can't really remember. I'm just going based on his directions. I could, if I had a GPS, I could. Oh, I do have a GPS. I think these cars actually come built in with GPSs, which is kind of a cool feature. Makes sense. Yeah, I like this region of Altis as well. I have a lot of thoughts on different regions of Altis, and I think it's cool that despite the fact that the campaign takes over a wide variety of terrain, you don't get to see all of it in the campaign. You kind of have... It's up to mission makers and players to kind of explore the island themselves. It's not all shown to you in the campaign. Kind of shows how vast the Altis terrain is. Earthquake. I wonder what could be causing that earthquake.
No cause for concern. Over. Copy, Broadwood.
Left.
Phalanx to all unions. We just experienced a light earthquake. Do not be alarmed.
Phalanx. I wonder, that's not Akinteros talking, that's probably just his headquarters call sign, had to guess.
Guess some greenbacks must have shit
Might
themselves.
actually be his voice actor talking, though. I mean, I wouldn't imagine that Colonel Akinteros would personally be handing radio communications
Take the next left.
across his whole military, but I don't know. That's kind of the thing about Arma. It's realistic to a point, but there's a lot of liberties taken with, you know, how radios work and how things work. There's a lot of realism, don't get me wrong, but a lot of it, I guess necessarily because it's a video game, it doesn't make it fully realistic. I just think, like, when they're making this map, all those little turn markers and everything, those are all manually placed. So much work went into this map and making sure all these little road markers and everything are around. Pretty incredible what they've done with Altis. Probably my favorite terrain in all of Arma, honestly, despite the fact that, you know, maybe it's overlooked by a lot of people because it's the default one, but I think it's really beautiful, and there's just so much to explore, and it's got so many interesting landmarks. I don't think anything really touches it in terms of quality. This is a fun little segment with the AAF kind of roughing up the local populace, kind of a omen of things to come, or
Pull up and park, Conway.
whatever you would call that. Words are escaping me.
Everyone out.
Vehicle. I don't really like it, but the US flags on plate carriers and everything, it would be really cool if they had built in a function to make these flags be replaceable and without retexturing, obviously. Be really cool if there were customizable flags and patches and things on gear. I hope it's in Arma 4 whenever that comes around.
They're just civilians.
Yeah, they're just civilians, man.
The buildings. And what's the deal with that
I like how ironically they just happen to be
searched all of them.
guerrilla sympathizers or something, because they do in fact have a weapons cache nearby.
Only these
These guys didn't know that.
Do you have medical support inbound?
Yeah, they just shot,
No. Are you
what is it,
kidding
3
me?
civilians, 2 civilians?
Search those buildings down there.
3
The rest of you,
wounded.
set up a perimeter, and you call for a goddamn medevac now.
Adams with the 3 GL. I find it interesting that team leaders pretty much always have GLs. I guess it makes sense because like, if you don't have a dedicated grenadier, you need someone to have that kind of force projection with a grenade launcher. And you know, obviously it's useful to be able to launch flares and smoke, signal smoke, and things like that. Although vanilla Arma 3 smoke grenades out of a launcher are kind of useless or just annoying. I guess they still can be useful for signaling because they can indicate an area, but they really bounce like fucking hell when they hit the ground. Default physics or whatever. I don't know if it's always been like that or if something maybe broke in an update eventually and they just never fixed it. In here, oh, actually there are, yeah.
I've got a weapon.
Oh yeah,
stash
now I
here.
remember.
Small arms and explosives. Definitely guerrilla.
What's in here?
Over.
You see?
Just
They were a threat.
standard
Yeah, I'm
AAF
sure they
weapon
just
caches
attacked
probably
you for
fell
no
off the back
reason.
of a truck or
Copy,
some
Sergeant.
corrupt
Form up.
AAF guy sold it to him. Are scorpions used by the AAF? They probably are if they have them, but I seem to remember those being a... Oh no, I think scorpions are actually used by CSAT, so I don't know how that... I like to explore, kind of, despite the fact that they don't tell you to. Over there. Zargabad, maybe? Sure. I remember there being a mess tin around here. Yeah, I'm misremembering. I thought there was like a... That's just kind of my autism flaring up. I try to explore to remember where all these things are. It kind of all blends together. Yeah. I'll comment on things like this little house here. You know, obviously there are only a limited amount of houses in Arma, but I like this one. It's got this little chimney. It's kind of like an old dilapidated, like an old style Greek house, I guess. Kind of run down, and you find these all over Altis, obviously. But it's kind of got an interesting setup for CQC because you come up the stairs here. You can bounce a grenade around the corner, but in my experience, the grenades never really want to bounce correctly, and they kind of happen to fall down the stairs or go out this window here, and kind of are a pain to clear. But this downstairs area is very fortunate. You can kind of clear the whole ground floor just by staying on the outside and circling around, clearing corners and everything. That's a little commentary on something Lania said. Yeah, this dumpster here. And I like to go into detail on these little objects that you probably wouldn't think about, but there's a little sticker there. Probably a dumpster number, I guess, for when a city would want to know where the dumpsters are, where they're assigned, and everything like that. TMP. Maybe it's based off of a real thing, and that's just what it said. TARC. These may be from a previous Arma game. I don't know. Little playground here. That's kind of a sad reminder of that there are probably children around, although you won't see them in the campaign. And I didn't make it. Damn it. This kind of sparks off the whole East one when you think about it, really. This one little civilian killing.
All right, everyone, mount up.
Probably
We're outta
pause
here.
the recording again just to make sure everything's good. I've had issues with this microphone before, so hopefully it didn't screw up, but I'll try to patch that as best I can. Oh, another little thing here I'll go over real quick. I like in that screenshot, you'll see on the rooftop, I'll probably comment on it, but you see an AAF guy with a toque, or a, what would you call that as a non-Canadian, a beanie, I guess. A beanie that, and a bandana on his face. And I like that kind of feature because normally in Arma, whenever you spawn a unit, they just spawn with their basic uniform. They spawn with, you know, their vest, their uniform, their helmet, generally, and one piece of face gear, like a sunglasses or a bandana. But I like when occasionally they throw into scenarios like the Civil War level scenario in TAC Ops, I believe, with the Civil War, where you see troops who have irregular uniforms, and much like the FIA, but even the FIA, when they have this irregular uniform, it's still uniform. Like every rifleman has the basic garment with a bandage and that, you know, the basic uniform apparel or whatever it's called, and a shamag or whatever it is they have. I don't think it randomizes headgear generally, but like when you throw into a scenario, you see, oh yeah, this is an AAF trooper, but he has a bandit or has a beanie on. It just kind of shows you, oh yeah, this guy, you know, he's kind of personalized his equipment a bit. Maybe he's just since he's on the roof with a marksman rifle, he doesn't want the helmet to obscure his vision or just kind of making him uncomfortable. So, or even you could extend it farther. Maybe this guy's doesn't have to stay with the standard equipment loadout. Maybe he's some kind of special forces or something similar to that. And he, you know, he's not kitted out like your standard plop him down in Zeus AAF rifleman. So yeah, I'll pause it for now. All right, I'm starting the recording again. I mean, like I said, I am kind of working through making sure it's all good. You'll probably hear keyboard clicking and things as I kind of get this sorted. I'm just figuring out my settings. Like I said, it's my first time recording ever, other than shadow play or ops and things like that. But let's see. Well, Ministry of Defense. I guess that's in canon where it is. I mean, interesting that the Ministry of Defense is here when the capital of Pyrgos is here, and I always assumed this little complex here. I recently had a mission. This little, I called it AAF government offices, but I believe this may be supposed to be some seat of government. Like it seems kind of presidential in nature or congressional, I guess you could say. Like maybe it's their seat of bureaucracy, maybe like Senate or some kind of parliament or something. Realistically, the scope of the island doesn't really make much sense because, you know, a city of this size being a capital with government offices and stuff, there's really only one government office there. Doesn't really make any sense, but I mean, just don't think too hard about it. Maybe imagine this island is supposed to be bigger in real life, and you just kind of have to stretch your disbelief, I guess. I like to read these. Team, do I have any inventory options? Alpha 1, 2, Alpha 1, 1. I like setting up signals for my mission, but it's kind of pointless because I don't really play with many people, but I like assigning call signs and little things. I appreciate that. Alpha 1, 1, Alpha 1, 2, Broadway, Colonel McKinnon, Phalanx AF Command, which you later find out is Colonel Acanteros. Let's see. Situation last week in AF Patrol. I won't read this, I guess. You can pause it and read it if you want. 1 casualty survived. Following the incident, AAC Airfield failed to AF security convoy en route from AAC Airfield, another common location for missions. It's kind of the secondary little airfield when you don't want to use the big airport, which I rarely use the big airport. It is cool, but I like the more rural feeling of the AAC Airfield, if you know what I mean. Kind of more of a heliport and very short runway aircraft only. Peacekeeping forces. I enjoy how I'll start our mission. We need to find the convoy's lost known location. I mean, I find it hard to believe that we don't have some kind of radio comms with them or something. I guess maybe they went behind a hill and couldn't get a radio transmission out or something, but I mean, whatever. I'll try not to complain too much about stuff like that.
Having trouble there, Staff Sergeant?
No, sir.
McKinnon voiced by the same guy who does
Any word from the MOD
called
sit down, sir?
the
Nothing from the AAF or the guerrillas.
maybe the colonel guy in Contact, the guy who gets, well, I won't spoil it, but something happens to him. Like I said, so there's the guy with, it's like a sniper team, probably some kind of special forces in the AAF, although you never really see them in the order of battle or hear about them. I assume they have some kind of elite marksmanship, or, I mean, I guess the only special forces you know of are sniper teams, which, I mean, there's no organizational component to them. There's no, like, special forces platoon or whatever. They just kind of seem to appear wherever. But I imagine they have some kind of special forces unit that stays off the OOB. On my head hole. I guess I'll talk about the MX more. Yeah, I like how it was designed by CMMG, a real firearms company. I'm really into firearms and everything, but I don't know. I like how it's not an AR. It's, you know, a similar function and features, but it's got that weird charging handle on the side, which I can't imagine liking in real life. It's so little nubby. I guess it won't get caught on anything, and it's ambidextrous. But it just feels really weird. Kind of reminds you of like I guess like a, you know, it's just a side charging handle, but it's got a short travel length. And I like how I've edited the wiki once, because the Arma wiki for the MX, because it shows an ejection port, and the wiki kind of said, oh, why would it have an ejection port? It has an ejection port despite the fact that it's caseless. Well, in a firearm, you may not realize it, but you need an ejection port just for basic functioning to make sure it's clear and safe, and clearing malfunctions. Access to the chamber is very important in general for firearms, so they would of course have to have an ejection port, despite the fact that, you know, it doesn't actually eject casings, which, I mean, a spot like that, you know, a firearms company would definitely see that, but, you know, if this was designed by just a video game designer, I could see that not having an ejection port. So that's kind of like an interesting fact about it that I like. Other than that, it's nothing too special, but I do enjoy it. Got the angled foregrip at all times, essentially. The stock is kind of like an ACR stock, I believe, or something similar to that. Hard landing a bit. NATO helmets are kind of interesting. This is kind of like an ACH, or so kind of like a U.S. Army helmet with a bunch of shit kind of bolted onto it with hearing protection. It may make sense. Maybe trying a little too hard to be futuristic, which you can kind of see in a lot of Arma 3 equipment. And I guess you also need to be able to eject, you know, live rounds or whatever from the chamber if you're unloading it, not just to make clear, but, you know, to actually eject it physically. I like the caseless aspect, although, you know, we may be a little bit away from caseless becoming a real thing. I don't know, I like the kind of leap that caseless becomes a big thing in 2035. Inez, see some movement up ahead, or no movement, but breeze. Okay.
Let's go, Conway.
Alright, let's go. One thing I noticed in my recording is sometimes I'll cut out, or it won't pick up because I'm using a noise gate to cancel out, you know, keyboard clicks and mouse clicks. I'll try to adjust that to be as good as possible, but it might be annoying, you know. Sometimes I may, you know, cut out or fade out when I don't want to. Oh my god. Boom, headshot. A little skirmish in the tutorial. Prologue, rather. It is kind of a tutorial, but got some story to it. It's got some, not just your average everyday tutorial. Like that's a separate campaign. I believe it was released later. Obviously, when the first episode came out, I don't think there was a prologue, but I could be wrong about that. I assume so, because I assume there was no prologue because this has equipment in it that was later released, like the aforementioned Grenadier or Team Leader vest with the MX Megs. I don't think that was. I'm pretty sure that wasn't on release.
Southwest at the tree line.
Southwest at the tree line. There we go.
Engage that man. Southwest.
It took me an embarrassingly long amount of time to realize that you have to hold, or at least on my controls, I'll go into that in a sec, but you have to hold shift to hold breath. I thought it was, for the longest time, I thought it was just hold right click, and I never noticed, but now you hold shift, it actually does reduce sway a lot. I don't know how I went through like 2,500 hours not knowing that, but one interesting thing playing with other people in Arma is when you get newer people, your keybinds are actually different from theirs, because I suppose over the years they've changed default controls for things, and because I am on a profile that's existed since Arma 3 Alpha, it really hasn't changed. I have the same control essentially as when it was in Arma 3 Alpha, which I like these controls. At least I think that's the reason why. I'm pretty sure from what I've surmised. One example being when I tell people to change stance, for me it's just press C and you'll change your movement stance, but for them I think it's double tap C, so it can be a little confusing if you don't keep that in mind. And
We've got wounded over here.
also I think walking is W and S by the default controls for Alpha, and then a little later, and they must have changed it to double tap W, I believe, to buckle walk for AAF soldier. I won't use my first aid kit on him yet until I'm ordered to. If I ambush this convoy, I don't really know. I guess because tensions are high, these may have been rogue guys. I can't see the FIA leadership thinking it's a good idea to provoke the AAF, but I mean they are revolutionary guerrillas, so maybe it's not too crazy. Use first aid kit. I guess if you used your first aid kit, you wouldn't have one to use on him, but I'll use my first aid kit on him, my IFAC, and take this one for later. Thanks.
One out.
He's holding, but not for long. We need medical here now.
All right, hold this perimeter. I'm not in the mood for any more support.
I like these vests they have. Go into that later, I guess. Combo is secure, but little remains. Time scale is a little weird in the campaign. I'll go into that more, but I don't know. I sometimes picture things taking course over longer time because I guess I'm used to more time skips in campaigns in video games. Whereas this is mostly, I mean, generally a lot of it is in real time, as in like the whole campaign takes over like the course of like 10 days, and I would be like, by the end of it, if you hadn't told me that, and without looking at dates, I probably would have assumed that it was over in, you know, a month or so. But it's quite a short time scale. The whole Eastwind incident happening. This is one instance of the time scale being a little weird. You wait here now. It's you've been waiting for a few hours maybe, and it's raining and it's dark, and I don't know, it just feels kind of weird because to me it seems like, how did it take this long to get a helicopter out here to pick up this poor guy? And I imagine not all the AAF are terrible baby killing you know, guys with chips on their shoulders. I'm sure there are some who were maybe conscripted or just joined for the pay basically, and that's no excuse for you know, committing war crimes or being in a genocidal army. But I mean, I can't bring myself to hate the AF entirely. I do enjoy them as a faction regardless, even their, you know, less than savory aspects. Mission on Hummingbird. Yeah, I'll go into that a bit. In the Ace, they rename a lot of the vehicles to their I guess you could say real life counterpart names, and I kind of take issue with that because, for example, I could be wrong. I believe they renamed this to an MH, whatever it is, Little Bird or whatever you would call it. They renamed the Markava or the Slammer to the Markava, and that kind of just confuses things because I would prefer to call things by their Arma 3 designations, but, you know, I call it a Markava because that's what it's called in the editor when you have Ace, and there's no real way to disable it in the CBA settings. It can be kind of annoying, but, like, the Slammer isn't exactly a Markava. If it has enough variation to it, you wouldn't just call, you know, a Mark 18 and M4 just because it looks really similar and has the same you know, function. You would call it something different because it has a different name designation. So the different changes and the fact that they have a different designation, I think, doesn't warrant them being renamed to their default name. Because obviously in the Armaverse they're called something different. I guess because people complained about the default names, or the Ace team just doesn't like that. It's kind of understandable why they would change it, but really like vanilla Arma, I think it would be nice to at least be able to turn that off. To have them be named what they are in vanilla Arma 3. That's a pretty autistic topic, I realize.
Broadway, Alpha 1-1 actual.
By the way, I have autism, so I'm allowed to say that. Legit autism.
Details are still coming in, but intel suggests the sit-down went haywire. Phalanx is reporting
Yeah.
that the FIA further at the cordon. Copy. Interrogative. What do you need us for?
FIA
I want
attempted
you
to take the Ministry of Defense, I believe.
situation at the MOD. We're getting conflicting reports left and right. I need someone on
And
the
there's a
ground.
bunch of
How
captured
copy?
FAA guys there, so we need to go and check it out, make sure they don't breach LOAC. That's the laws of armed conflict.
That must be our ride.
That's a ride. Who could be driving it, I wonder?
Keep an eye on things. Sergeant and I will check
Oh.
out the MOD.
It is one Ben Carey.
All right,
Oh,
let's
I wonder,
move.
this guy's gonna go far, I can tell. Look, he's smiling at me. Wonder if that's scripted, or if he just kind of, you know, his AI just kind of looked his head to the right and kind of smiled. I don't think that's supposed to happen. Arma editing can be weird sometimes, so it's understandable. I like the soundtrack. I think this plays when you return to Stratus. I think it's called Return to Stratus or something like that. It's kind of a, you know, melancholic, a little bit triumphant, but sad. It's like, it's finally over. That's kind of the feeling I get from this song. Kind of see a bit more of the turmoil here. There's looks like down AF troopers and civilian. I wonder if that guy was armed. Probably not. I'll probably end this part with the prologue and then continue on with the campaign itself. Bootcamp, I believe the prologue is called, right? What a mess. It really is. You know?
See what's going on. I'll be there in a sec.
Alright, I'll see what's going on. I wonder what Carrie... Oh, yeah, here he is. What do you think, Carrie? He just wants to fucking go home. But it's not over for him yet. Conway is definitely in the Eastwind, the initial part as well, I'm pretty sure. I can't really remember. He may be one of the commanders of the remnants of Task Force Aegis. Gorilla. I like that gorilla uniform the best, actually. That the kind of the combat pants and the sweater, that like commando sweater. I really like that FIA outfit the most. Oh, look who it is. It's Phalanx. AF officer. I like how he wears the same fatigues as every other officer. I think he does. There's 3 stars on his, you know, his blades or whatever, but
1-2, Broadway, receiving. Send it, over.
I've got greenbacks abusing FIA prisoners at the MOD, sir. Please advise, over.
Copy, wait one.
kind of awkwardly standing there waiting for my commander to give me a talking to.
What? Sir, if I may...
Negative 1-2. You are to stand down. That's an order.
Alright,
Confirm,
I'll
over.
stand down, I guess.
Solid copy, sir. Out.
Solid copy. A nice car.
Just so you fucking know, I'm about to shoot some hearts and minds, Sergeant.
Arson mines. Indeed. Sometime later? This... Oh, it's gonna start the east one, right? I can't remember what happens in the prologue. Oh, is it just, Oh, yeah, this is,
What the fuck was
meeting Adams on the hill.
Just the chain of command at its
That was
that?
Acanteros.
call-sign phalanx, Colonel Acanteros. You just bashed horns with the AAF's top
AF's top
brass.
brass is a
That's the top
colonel,
brass? Now I know why you're so fucked up.
which is at the top rank in Arma. He's the highest ranking officer in Arma.
Can't believe
A
McKinnon
colonel.
shut us down
Can't be
like
a general, according to the editor. I mean, obviously you could assign it to someone and say they're a general, but... Rapid deterioration of AF-NATO relations. That is an understatement, considering what happens next. We're limited to Stratus. What kind of a peacekeeping mandate is on Stratus, considering the civilian population has been evacuated, I believe? How is there even FIA activity on Stratus when anyone you see is considered a guerrilla? And how small the island is. It must be pretty difficult to get around without being spotted, but... I mean, like I said, you're not supposed to think about it too hard. I like the little loading screen tips. Venetian civilization of traders and explorers. I do enjoy reading the wiki occasionally, and I like that I read the interesting the Arma wiki entry on Altis and kind of the history and how there's, you know, there was a Byzantine fort and everything like that. Just kind of interesting backstory that, you know, despite the fact that it's supposed to be a real life, or it was originally supposed to be a real life island, you know, before the whole arresting of Bohemia Devs thing. They kind of turn it into its own setting and with its own backstory, with its own location on the map. And I enjoy that Altis isn't just, you know, Lemnos with a bit of change. There is quite a bit of difference between, you know, a Greek faction and what is going on with the AAF and everything. Anyways, this was my first part. Let me know if you have any complaints, any tips or anything in the comments, and I'll make a new part sometime soon. Thanks.